meets like we were live here in Sydney, Australia. We have this beautiful young lady, Mona, with us. Now, first of all, Mona, I would love to know like who is their real Mona? Because looking at your LinkedIn, we see the IT manager. We already have something in common. Yeah. The IT background. You used to be a CRM manager, an IT project manager. So you have this IT background, right, for many, many years. Having worked from Michael Page to National Breast Cancer Foundation, so meaningful. And now the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Radiologists, very diverse. On LinkedIn, you mentioned you map systems, you map stories, and you turn vision into reality. Quoting you, to me, technology is not just about systems. It's about clarity, communication, and enabling people to do their best work. With over 16 years of experience in the not-for-profit sector, you work at the intersection of purpose and progress, helping organizations rethink outdated systems, manage change, and deliver lasting impact. But then on the other hand, and this is how our common friend Adam introduced you to me actually, you are a passionate, oh my gosh, writer drawn to the idea that our lives are not just a series of events, but a story we're constantly making meaning from. Through writing your life, you work with people to explore and connect the dots of their experiences, capturing not just memories, but identity, relationships, and the legacy they live behind. So who's the real Mona?
We'll explore that today, right? Who's the real Mona? Mona's the real Mona sitting here. What can I tell you, Janine? The real me is a collaboration of people I grew up with. You know, my family, my friends, people I, come into my life, leave my life, people I work with. So what you see is what you get. You know, I show up for you, you show up for me. The real me just really is passionate about life and passionate about people and passionate about just creating, a place, a special place and space for people to be able to share who they want to be and to that honour, to be able to be given that honour to hold space. That's who I am. I really see there's so much an honour being of service to other people.
Wow, what a powerful first statement here. So how does having a Lebanese background and growing up in Australia shaped who you really are? How good, by the way, is also your Arabic language?
My Lebanese is so-so. Just don't speak to another Lebanese person, I say to myself, because I would just laugh. But growing up as a Lebanese person in Australia, well, I was born here and born to migrant parents. There's so much beauty in the Lebanese culture, and when we integrated, in the Australian, Anglo way, there wasn't so much difference. It was all, you find in different cultures, in the Lebanese culture, that it's all about family. It's all about celebrating life. So growing up in Australia without, a Lebanese community around me, I had two people, which is my parents, and 6 siblings. To really, or 5 siblings, I'm one of 6. Really instill those values, but they weren't to determine or my life. They were just values and foundations to start with. So it was never about pushing. My parents never pushed that culture on us. It was just never forgetting, that DNA, that bloodline, that where they came from and why they migrated here, and just being Lebanese in an Australian, society. I didn't see myself any different. I just see that, different cultures, bring different things out for different people.
Yes, and I mean like your friend circle and the people you work with, they're so multicultural, different cultures, different religions. Let's talk a little bit on how you started your career. I think it was like as a volunteer, like autobiography writer at a hospice, sitting with people in the final stages of their lives. I mean, that must take a lot of like mental strength, I can imagine. Now, what was the experience like, and what did it teach you about the urgency of story?
Great question. Working in the hospice was an amazing experience. And in actual fact, it was an honour to be working with people at the end of their life, because they've been diagnosed with this short time, to live, 3 months, 6 months, and choose me to sit with them to tell me their story when time was of the essence. That was the biggest honour that I learned. Was it hard? No, I learned very early on it was not about me. These people just wanted to share their story. And that, that was in itself a learning curve on how to hold space. But what I learned and what they taught me is time waits for nobody. And so stories only become urgent when time runs out. And hence why I encourage people, don't wait till you get to the end of your life to ask, has my life been wrong? Has my life been right? Could I have done things differently? You're never too old, you're never too young to start writing your story. And the patients I worked with were, 40 years old, 50 years old, 70 years old. So, there's no discrimination when, at that time, the urgency to start your story. And this is what these people taught me.
Wow. This is a random question that just came in my mind. You sometimes hear that even if people have cancer or so, or whatever diseases, suddenly something happens and they're actually getting cured. Have you ever seen that? That one person who was in hospice and a miracle happened and they went out? And or they had more time to live as compared to what they have been told?
Yeah, of course. We always think that doctors are miracle workers, and I take my hat off to them in terms of what they do for patients at the end of their life.
Yeah.
They're not God. We have to remember that, and they're just in it as much as you are. We don't think that they are, but they are. And what I did see was when there would be a patient who had 3 months to live, but they had the fight in them to keep pushing through. So 3 months turned into 6 months, and 6 months turned into 9. And it's not to say that they didn't pass, because they did. They still had a terminal illness, but no, I can't say that I saw somebody recover from it. I just saw that when they had their fight, I just had the patient tell their story, and by releasing what they were holding on to, I don't know if that played a part in them, extension of their life by a month or 2 months, but I really believe there's a power in healing by telling your story. And when people are surrounded by love, we can't predict. We can't predict time when someone's going to pass, even if they've been given that sentence. But
Now that you tell this, I just have this memory coming up. I remember when I was still in high school, and you're in the stage where you explore your strengths, your personality type, what you want to do in the future. Just had this image popping up in this elderly home, and I always had 50% of yes, I want to do business, and 50% of I think I'm going to do something social, become a social worker. That just reminds me, and especially pairing the younger and the older generations together. So yeah, very meaningful what you have, how you've started. So was there a particular person or story from those early years that stayed with you and shaped the kind of work that you do today?
Yeah, actually there is. It took me a long time to be able to say, talk about him without breaking down and crying, because there's always that one patient or that one client who really impacts and shapes your life. And I won't use this in it, but John was the person for me. And when I met him, 53, diagnosed with bowel cancer, and he was terminal, he taught me that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey and the relationship you have with somebody. So for me, when he told me that after our first session, it was the first time he was able to sleep in 6 months. It felt like he'd been speaking to a counsellor, and he was saying to me, when can we have our next session? That made me realise it's not about trying to finish his story. It's about holding space for someone who actually got something out of this, and he shared that with me, and it made me realise how better do I. My job is to hold space for people, and because of him and what he got out of that helped shape how I'm doing this now. And it's not about me, and it's not about, if someone wants to cry, I'll hold that space for them. But it's not even about me, being affected by it, it's making sure they feel safe to tell their story with me. And John, early on during that volunteer period, that's what he taught me. Let go of ego. You're not there, to help them heal. You're there to hold space for them, because they'll do the healing and they'll take what they get out of it for themselves, not what I can project onto them.
That's so meaningful. Why do you think so many people go through life without ever truly telling their story or believing it's worth telling?
I'd ask you that same question. Why do people believe their story is not worth telling? I feel like people minimize their own life. And, if they're comparing themselves to somebody else, if they feel like their life hasn't been big enough or colourful enough. But it could also be, what environment are they in? Who is their tribe? Who is, when they've gone through something, who's there holding space for them to listen to their story?
Yeah.
And so when they ask me, I don't know if I have a story to tell, everyone's story matters. And you do not know who you're going to impact. You can help one person, pave the way for one person by telling your story. But I just feel like, just share your story. Start there. Start recognizing your own self-worth.
So I work with a lot of executives, business owners, entrepreneurs, more towards social media, and more and more nowadays people are really asking also for like branding opportunities, speaking on stages. So many of them, they might be the most successful people, right? In terms of whether you define success in like money or revenues they generate or impact or whatever, right? But it's interesting how many of them have a fear to show their face on social media. Like even myself, like I'm starting to become better at it, but some of the biggest achievements I had, or like in some magazines I've been in the last few years when I was still living in China, I did not have the courage to share it. And there's still so many things I have on my pile right now, like from the last few years, I haven't shared in social media yet. So what I actually have decided is, okay, I have like my team members, I just have to find the time, dig it back out from my phone and my laptop, delegate it to my team members, give them background, and let them write something about it and then post it. Because sometimes this is a moment where even I know how many people think, oh, Janine is so like confident, extroverted, where I have these moments, I doubt myself, and I'm like, oh, it's not good enough. Yeah, unfortunately, we compare ourselves to other people, which is really a happiness killer. But yeah, I think like by having the other people do it, or hiring someone like you who then writes this autobiography, you cannot overthink. These inner saboteurs cannot tell you, no, don't do it, because they're going to get it done for you.
But it's about celebrating those achievements that you have, right?
Yeah.
And there's milestones. You put hard work in, why not celebrate them?
That's true.
It's for yourself.
Yeah. Work in progress. I hope that this is some really good motivation for every one of you, whether you're a business owner or entrepreneur or not, right? So really, like, be proud and push it, like even on social media, or tell your family. And I think especially also compared to Australian and American culture, Americans do feel more confident to post it out there, versus like Australians with the tall poppy syndrome, or even us Germans. Like I was always told in childhood, like, don't put yourself in the center of attention. It's not good, right? So yeah, we do have these cultural boundaries sometimes as well. But back to you, what do people actually carry that shapes them? And how does putting that into words change things?
They carry beliefs. They carry unprocessed experiences of their life. There's a lot of silence and what do they carry? They carry out that. And when you haven't fully processed an experience, how do you understand how it shaped you? And that's where the power of writing comes in, because you're the one telling your story. So when you write it down, versus having it in your head or not having processed it, when you write it down and you can actually read back your own story, that's when you can understand what what are truly my beliefs? What has this experience really done for me? How is this, part of my identity? So the power of writing it down actually is helping you process those unprocessed experiences in your life, and then it means that you don't have to carry it alone anymore.
That makes sense. So I remember my friend Alicia, she's always telling me, oh, Janine, like, I'm running this journaling class. You should come and join me, right? Because, like, many people have anxiety. And very often we just keep it in our minds. I mean, this sounds like, okay, you're working with a life coach now. It's very different from what you're doing theoretically. But yeah, like even journaling, a lot of people are recommending journal your thoughts down. And then, like, I've never liked writing. I still don't like writing. That's why probably if I ever write an autobiography, I'll outsource it to you. Yeah, but like journaling, it does make a difference in writing something down. So Mona, you have certifications in, again, guys, remember, she has an IT background, right? But then now, this lady, she has certifications in narrative therapy and mental health and crisis support. How does the therapeutic dimension inform your biography work? Also, where does the writer end and the guide begin?
So we need to be clear that I'm not a therapist.
Yes, right.
And at the moment, yes, I'm studying the long certificate in narrative therapy, hoping to do my master's in it.
Wow.
Where the writer begins and the guide ends and the writing guide begins, they actually work hand in hand. Because as a writer, it's a bit, I work with people who've had trauma or complex PTSD, really hard, have experienced a lot of hardship in their life. And even though I'm not there to counsel them, it's my due diligence not to re-traumatize them, because we touch on some very, deep personal traumas, and they just wouldn't be able to share that. And for me, it's making sure that they're not walking away ruminating over into our next session, and it shuts them down. So doing these courses is helping me making sure that these people stay safe, that we can talk about those experiences without them revisiting the actual trauma itself.
Yeah.
And in that way, they're being able to tell and share their story without, in a very safe place and safe space. So these courses are just been helping me how to ask these questions, how to get the most of these people when they really want to write and share the story. They don't need counselling. They already see their psychologist or psychotherapist. I'm just there to guide them because they're feeling ready to share their story.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into a couple of the stories behind the stories. So let's talk about maybe some of your client journeys. Tell us about your recent collaboration with Naomi, Serio, and her book Sojourn. What was that process like, and why was it such a powerful project for you?
Oh, that's what I forgot to bring with me, is the book.
That's okay. We can cut it in.
That's okay. Naomi, that experience with Naomi was incredible. She is amazing, and oh wow, what a powerful, that journey with her was incredible. She as the expert, she really trusted me. As the expert therapist, she really trusted me to structure the book, to be able to guide her in how to tell it. And what I got from that is also some of the parts of the books and the sessions triggered me. That's how I knew her book was going to be powerful, because what she was also sharing was parts of herself, and in a collaborative way to let others into her story as part of the self-help guiding book. So that in itself there was so much power in that, because I get something out of all my clients. I always learn.
Like me with the podcasting, right?
Yeah. But hers was just incredible, because she was really willing to share. As a psychotherapist, you're there to hold space for others, but she was willing to allow me to hold space for her to share her story. And there's a beautiful, quiet, power in that, when two people who really want to bring something to life really get to this point. And it was great for her to let me in and let her readers in by writing her book, to humanize her story.
What exactly do you mean? Maybe you can try to make this a bit more tangible for some of the listeners when you say to make space for her to share. What exactly does it mean?
Yeah, of course. It means that I don't question or judge her beliefs. Whatever she's sharing with me, doesn't matter her experience. You know, she had a lot of trauma, and you know, I'll wait for you to read the book. You can buy it from her website. What it means to hold space for people, just not judging them, not asking why or questioning it, just guiding them to tell more of their story, guiding them to make them feel, you know, I'm here, I'm hearing you, I'm listening to you. What else can you share with me? Really encouraging her to just be able to speak freely, and ensuring that she feels that whatever she's sharing with me is you know, we write it in the best way in her voice, in her authentic voice. And so it's actively listening to her.
Now, in the terms of AI, it's a trend. Everyone feels that it's starting to change jobs, how people make money. Do you think that you will be, like people like you who do this job, they will be replaced by AI?
How much does AI know about your story? Is what I ask people, right?
I mean, we start to feed ChatGPT and Claude with a lot of details to work in our marketing and other things.
I encourage whichever way you feel that feels right for you to write the story, do that. If you feel safe to talk to someone like me, a writer, to help you document it, do that. If you feel like AI is going to help you more and you're just not ready to share it and talk about it with someone, I encourage people to just do what feels right with them. Am I afraid that AI is going to replace writers like me or, you know, this industry? No, I propel with it. Like, it's like, what's it teaching me how to become a better version of myself so I can help people, guide them this way versus going to AI and relying on AI to write their story. You know, just I see both working with me and working with AI, like it works hand in hand. I'm not going to tell people I'm not afraid of it, essentially.
Okay. I mean, with these stories that you've already shared, and I want to learn more about some of the other client stories as well. It really sounds like, especially because of this human touch, this human connection, especially if you work in a hospice, especially when there's trauma coming up. I think this really sounds like you need a human.
You need
and
you need something,
not just a machine.
Yeah.
If you want to really go deep into it, and preferably human who has a bit of like therapy background as well.
I promise you, I'm not going to give you therapy.
Yes.
I'm just gonna maybe toast a cocktail with you if you like while we're doing a session.
Yeah. So what does it take to, you're currently working with an entrepreneur who grew up in a culture where boys don't cry. I think if we go to like Italy, I mean, even Germany back then, they would have told us like, oh no, there was a saying in German, like Indians, like the original people from the US, that's what I mean with Indians, don't cry. That's what they said in Germany, right? So yeah, you're working with this man who comes from a culture where boys don't cry, and who took on responsibility far too young, and now wants to use his story to encourage other men to be more open and vulnerable. Without naming him, what does this kind of project ask of you as a writer?
Responsibility. It asks me, just to remain responsible to him, responsible to sharing his story, responsible to ensuring that, the way he wants to share his story and what he's doing, in actual fact, is quite courageous, because men don't cry, boys don't cry, and when you grow up in a culture like that, even having a mental breakdown is a no-no. And when he experienced that and shared that with me, my responsibility is to ensure that his story gets out there, as a collaborative way, but told in the way he wants to tell it, what feels true to him, because he wants to break down those stigmas about, why can't boys cry at young age? Why can't they have breakdowns and be able to share that and be vulnerable. So for me, it's responsibility in making sure that other men know that they're not alone. It's his, so together we're making sure that men know that you are allowed to have breakdowns. Mental health in men does exist, and why do they have to journey on it together? So his book, is incredible. His story is incredible, and I feel really honoured because he's quite fragile and vulnerable in sharing his story. But it's important to him and important to me that other young boys and young men and men of different generations understand that it's okay.
I personally find this very powerful as well because, I've lived in China for 8.5 years. And if you look at, for example, Chinese high school students, how high the rate of suicide is. If you look at Japan, sometimes they commit suicide and it's a whole family. This concept of losing face. I'm sure in Middle Eastern cultures and African cultures, we know tons of these kind of examples. So, yeah, well done on that. Now, you also wrote David Bitten's autobiography, Chopped and Served. I think he's a chef, right? So it is a raw account of survival, abuse, and resilience. How do you hold space for stories that are that heavy?
It's because I don't see them as heavy.
Oh.
Right, so when I transitioned out of volunteering at the hospice to, writing full-time and working with paid clients, the hospice taught me it's not my story. And if I love what I do. I can't express, I absolutely love being able to help people write their story. And so if I get caught up in the emotions, if I feel like it's too heavy, then I'm not doing them any good. And so for me to take them on a deeper level, it's me to just make sure I'm not reacting to them, to what they're trying to share. Do I see it as heavy? Absolutely not.
So for me, it sounds a bit like you stay very neutral, very rational. Does it mean you're not showing any compassion or empathy in that moment to make sure that you don't attach to these kind of emotions and heaviness?
Don't get me wrong, there's always, there's a difference between compassion and someone telling the story as being heavy.
Yeah, because you seem like a very compassionate person to me.
Well, I'll always, be that compassionate and, empathetic. But, I would never sit there and go, oh, that's just, comment. It's not for me to comment on their story. It's for me to just say and talk me through that and guide them so that they can keep going deeper and share more. And because if it's heavy to me, then how am I going to be able to tell their story? And if every person came to me, I've worked with people who've tried to commit suicide or who've had, experienced domestic violence. So it's important for me to just make sure I take care of me. So I decompress and remember it's not my story, so I still can get, emotionally affected, but I won't. It's for me to just make sure the story is told in their authentic voice and in the way they want to say it. So for me not to judge and hold space.
Yeah, it's becoming clearer and clearer. Now, this might sound like a stupid question, right? I've read tons of books, especially when I was a child. Nowadays, I personally, my style is a bit more like I take online trainings, or I go to conferences and speeches like this and reading a book. I've read Steve Jobs' autobiography, and maybe it was one of the only ones that I read. So I would be thinking, like, if someone is not as famous as Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, or I don't know, who would read their autobiographies? Who would buy that book?
Okay, great question. Some people write for their family, like as a keepsake, and then there are people who have had some deep trauma, right, and have come out from the other end. So people who want to be inspired, or educated, or even entertained, because this is what these books can do sometimes, is entertain our readers. But it really comes down to the person who wants to write their story. So who would buy their book? Let's go to Naomi, for example. She's a psychotherapist. She's got, her own clinic. Her clients want to read her book because it humanises her story. And for David Bitton, it humanises his. So he's not just a Sydney chef, and you know, he's a man with a story as well as you. And so who would want to buy people who sometimes are looking for inspiration or motivation or to connect with someone who, oh my God, that person's been through it. I'm going to read that book because this is what I'm going through. And how did they come over it? You know, come across the other way. So it's a very broad question, but I would be more interested in reading your story and knowing that, oh, I've met you, and now I'm like, oh, okay, you're inspiring from what you've shared to where you are now. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read your story. Why wouldn't I? Like, I'm learning something from you. So, yeah, I feel like it's just don't compare yourself to the big, you know, like to the Steve Jobs, and because, yeah, they do have a great story, but so do you, and so does your friend or your family member.
Such a good reminder, like especially now when I think back of like my times in China, and I still go to China regularly, right? So many people, they always think success means money, right? And then again, they compare themselves, and yeah, who would want to read my story? But again, Mona just clearly said, everyone has an amazing story to tell, and it's worth it, and it might change someone's life. And that's exactly why I started this podcast, Business Meets Life, because it might just be like some of the key messages. Like Mona has a couple of messages she even repeated several times, even if I ask completely different questions. But it gives like, it could be that one sentence of one word that changes someone's life here, and from now decide, so yeah, I think I need to tell my story. I need someone like Mona in my life. Like, right, some people, they watch a podcast, listen to it, or just like, yeah, they read a book. Different people, different needs. Okay, so I have a couple more questions. It was so difficult for me to actually downsize the questions because I feel like, wow, this is such a new world for me of what you're doing. So let's talk about some family businesses, legacy, and future generations. You work also with multi-generational family businesses. I mean, in Germany, we have tons of family businesses, right? Global hidden champions. Now, you help them to document their stories. Why is it so important? And what gets lost when it doesn't happen?
Yeah, family stories are very interesting.
Sounds like a good thriller or romance. Someone got killed at the end. Novel, not romance. Sorry, that was the German translation.
I'll start with what could get lost is the DNA of the business. Everybody thinks it's just a family just starting a business, but how are we born? Like, what's this? You know, it's the DNA that will get lost when these stories aren't written. And when families share their stories, it's because the second generation or the third generation is coming into play to take over. So it's almost like they're writing a succession plan for the next generation, and to not forget some of the risks, the risks and how it's built and the sweat. And some of these families have migrated here and came with nothing. They took a big chance, and by documenting that, it's a reminder that for the next generation, it's not about changing, and modernizing that family business. It's just not forgetting the DNA and where your parents or that family member built, and carry that with you. It's not to dictate how you change that, with the next generation changing it. It's not about dictating, it's just not forgetting and, still respecting that foundation that family business was built on.
Yesterday, I went to the Royal Automotive Club here in Sydney, and the building is 120 years old. I mean, being European, we have a lot of culture, we love history, and it was just so interesting to see some of the members. Many of them were a little bit older, so of course they have tons of interesting stories to tell, very different for me as a German now in Australia. And it was very interesting to see even how the building, how much story it has. I think it's been in this space for probably decades. Or what you can see on all of these walls, the accomplishments, the members. So yeah, it's amazing. And I have this Lebanese friend, a very successful business owner, Azia. I think he's Lebanese, but he's based in Dubai. He's actually helping like different companies in Dubai and in the Middle East to transition from like now the elder founders who have started these companies into like the younger generations, because these are family businesses. He's told me a couple of these challenges that they have. I might want to ask him if he wants to talk about it on the podcast.
I love that. There's opportunity in everything, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so what surprising things do business owners discover about themselves when they sit down to reflect on how they actually built what they built?
What do they discover?
Yeah, about themselves or so.
How much of themselves on a personal level was invested in that business? How much of their identity is linked to the business? And because they, you know, when you're building something, you know, you're building this, I've been building mining, we just get caught up in trying to create something. But when asked that question, when I've worked with them, it's a reminder, you know, when I'm connecting the dots, because that's how I see it. You know, you're connecting the dots when you start documenting your story, they start to realise just how personal it was to them, and how much it, you know, for them, a lot of their identity went into building that business. Hence, when that next generation does want to take over, why sometimes it's hard for them to let go and see the changes that they didn't want, but now the next generation wants to make. And when they've discovered, when they start writing the story, that's when they discover, oh, it's because, yeah, it was about me. It's my personal journey to have created this. It's my personal legacy. And they didn't, you know, because we don't celebrate what we've created. We get so caught up in just that building and keeping it, you know, afloat, that when we sit and, you know, we talk about it, or they talk to me about it, just how personal and to them it was, and how much of themselves went into that business.
Yeah. I mean, at Business Beats Life, we interview a lot of successful people like you. What is your personal definition of success? It's a tricky one, right?
What's my definition of success? Starting what I want to do. Even when meeting you know, and writing someone's story, or what's my definition of success? What I set my intentions out to be for that day. Success isn't always about that finance or, you know, achieving a big goal. Success to me is, what was my intention that day, and have I achieved it? Yeah, then I'm successful in my own right. It's, you know, if we want to relate it back to stories, what's success to me is just helping people connect the dots to their lives and giving them a second chance to tell this, you know, to live another, you know, a new chapter of their life. But it's not always defined in money or the clothes we wear. It's just defined for me is, what did you set out to do that day, and did you achieve it?
You sound like an action taker. 2 nights ago, I was hosting an event. So we had the very famous Sydney property buyer's agent, Jack Henderson, here. So Jack was saying, like, he's getting coached by the Alex Hormozis, the Tony Robbins, and so on. And like, he has a $150 million turnover business per year now. He's not even 30 years old. So he was saying, like, having spoken to so many successful millionaires, billionaires, whatever, he's saying the difference really is between them and others. They make decisions, and then of course they put in the action. Many of them, they say, yeah, you got to put in the action, but he was really saying, like, make these decisions. And that's exactly somehow what he also said, right? Make the decision and then put in the action. Have you gotten it done by the end of the day, for example? Okay, good. Last few questions. Let's speak lastly a bit about the craft, the calling, and especially what is next for Mona. You are also a very proud member of the Family Business Association and Women's Network Australia, communities that reflect your commitment to legacy, leadership, and long-term value. Why are these organizations so important to you?
collaboration, it's the learning. Like, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, that I'm trying to, specialize in this craft. I can still do better. I can still learn more. And also because of the way these two, associations, they create community. There's no hierarchy. Some of these families have been around for 120 years, but they do not. They've built something great for 120 years, but there's no hierarchy in that. People just want to genuinely be heard and seen. And these associations bring people together. A Women's Network Australia, why that's important. Like, everybody fixes everyone's crown. Like, every woman there supports one another. And at the Family Business Australia, just, again, it doesn't matter that hierarchy. There's so many people who want to help you, and so many people who still listen. And just that, for me, is my education and my learning, and being able to be in a place where everybody just genuinely wants to collaborate with one another. And I feel like that's where I'm finding my tribe and my growth as well, in learning how other people before me and after me are paving the way, and encouraging and educating, me and other entrepreneurs and startups, and even people who've been in business for a long time are learning, from one another. So it's why not be part of these two communities?
I think what is very obvious here is with Mona and a lot of the other people we're interviewing in Business Meets Life, she also mentioned words like learning. We can definitely see like the growth mindset that she has, and what also made her successful in whatever she is basically doing, right? So if someone listening today is sitting on a story they've never told, maybe because they think it's not important enough or they're not ready, what would you say to them?
To start. Even if you don't want to, share it with me or share it with your friends. Like we talked about journal, write it in a journal, or just even just be present with your own life and take note that it does matter. Your story does matter. And that even if you don't know that it will make a difference to anybody else, just remember, when you tell it, when you write it, when you read it back, it will matter to you, because you are the only person who will ever be able to tell the truth of your own story. And there's so much power in that. So much, power in you writing your story down, and not, don't wait till the end of your life. Don't wait till, till it's too late. Don't wait till, that's when stories become urgent. Like I said before, when time runs out, you matter. So I would say, if you're not ready or you're just feeling nervous, just start with yourself. Have a conversation with your friends. Have a conversation with someone like me or Janine, right? Just start quietly. Even start writing it down, and don't have to start with once upon a time. You can just start with where you are now and work backwards.
That's a good tip. I was about to say these are really beautiful closing words, but I'm afraid I have another 2 questions for you now. Do you have any regrets? Because I think people who, like those people in the hospice, for example, they look back and they might have a lot of regrets coming up, or, you've learned from them from an early age, but do you yourself have any regrets? And you're still young.
I feel like I wouldn't say regrets in what I've done. I would say regrets in what I don't get to say. And that's what I say, even what these people, not just the people at the end of life, but even the entrepreneurs and the families that I interview, what the common theme I found is, we don't regret what we haven't done, we regret what we don't say. That's why I say storytelling is important, because, for me, is there anything I regret? No, I wouldn't say there's anything I regret, because I am trying to live by the same values of what I'm trying to encourage other people to do. And for me, when it crystallized how important storytelling was me as a teenager, when I'd gone through a personal experience, and I didn't know how to communicate, I didn't know who to talk to, and there was shame and embarrassment, and I was judging myself. And when I leaned towards writing and journaling my thoughts, I I finally understood and saw the patterns that I was repeating. And then from that, I grabbed every part of those journal entries and turned them into my own life story and thought, wow, that's why storytelling, why I'm passionate about people sharing their stories, because you find that truth in yourself, you find your patterns. So, do I regret anything? No, I can't say that I do. Yeah,
It's powerful. I love how you reminded us of, how did you say it? Just say it, or what you don't say. This makes me also think that in some cultures, like in Chinese, Russian culture, they're not very common to say, for example, I love you to their parents, or give like big hugs. It's a different way of communication instead of saying it a different way, right? I think this could be a really good like action point that I also love to give to our audience today. Beyond of her being an amazing writer and she can help you write your biography or anything else that you feel like you want to say, you want to entertain, you want to inspire people through the written word. But just from today, what is it that you could say where you just get out of your comfort zone, whoever it is, it could be even to yourself in the mirror, in terms of self-love, self-confidence, or to anybody else, your parents, it could be even part of like forgiving, saying, even apologizing, I'm sorry, telling someone finally, I love you. Or I remember my friend Chris, he's British American, I know him from China. Like he would say, I love you, although we're just friends. And it took me a while to understand it. You can say, I love you to your friends, and it doesn't have the same kind of like, or it has the same meaning like you would say to your boyfriend, but in a different way, right? So I'd love to see some comments from you guys on what is it that you said? How did Mona inspire you now to maybe journal or write something down, or yeah, whatever it is. Last question to you now. That was a really good inspiration. I'm wondering what I'm going to take as an action today. I don't have an answer to this yet.
Well, as Wayne Dyer would say, don't die with the music still inside you. Don't get to the end of your life and ask if my life had been wrong. So do something about it today. Even if your story, if you don't want to share it with anybody else, but write it for yourself.
Love it. So what's next for Mona and writing your life? Where is your own story going from here?
What's next?
I know you're going to do a TEDx talk, apparently.
Oh, I'd love to do it.
If anybody wants to hire her for the TEDx speech, call her, maybe. Not maybe.
But that's stepping into my fear, right? Standing on stage in front of people.
Can't even believe that this is a fear because you seem so natural.
You make it easy. What's next? So just really educating myself on how to work with people even more to a deeper level, on a complex level, understanding, it's not always about understanding people, but just working with them and letting them guide me. What's coming up for me next, being, again, honoured that I'll be working with a woman, First Nations Indigenous leader. So working with her, she's in the Biennale this year, her paintings are there, without discussing who she is at the moment, but from that, what's next for me is even learning a lot about the Indigenous culture through her. And what she's already teaching me is that it's not about hashing up the past. Her ancestors, that was their stories, and it's not forgetting their story, but not allowing them to dictate her and her children and her moving forward as an Indigenous First Nations leader. I mean, that's what's coming up next, which is so exciting. And that's such a privilege, because to be invited on country and to work with, elders and her, like that's it. I feel so honoured, so just educating myself even more, and working with more people and clients and building Writing Your Life and helping people get their stories out there, authentically in their voice. And from that's how my story unfolds, right? Because what am I learning? And I'm learning my identity too. I'm trying to understand myself when I meet different types of people. So, am I writing my story yet? Yeah, I am. But at the moment, my focus is, how do I serve people who need, who want, you know, who have got something to inspire and educate other people with.
Wow. Very impactful, very meaningful. All the best to you on that. Keep us posted. Guys, if you love today's session at Business Meets Live, make sure you subscribe and like. We're going to have Mona's website or social media in the description later on, so please make sure you connect with her as well. Follow her on social media on her amazing projects. Maybe start working with her. And you might be so surprised of how meaningful it could be to bring your story out there. Yeah, thank you for your time. Happy Saturday. She literally came in on the weekend. And doesn't she look amazing in red? I guess we're the red ladies here.
Oh, we are red. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Janine, thanks so much.
All right, guys. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to have amazing Matthew with us, a serial entrepreneur from Australia who I actually hang out with in the gym in Los Angeles at 5 o'clock in the morning. So you're going to meet him tomorrow. Take care. Bye.